Welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Joining us now, the Lieutenant Governor of Kentucky, Jacqueline Coleman. Before this, she was a teacher. She's making her the highest elected teacher in the entire state. She's now chair of the National Lieutenant Governor Association. And recently we had the governor on, Andy Beshear. And it's great to have you on now, Lieutenant Governor, to talk about your state from your point of view. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So what first inspired you? I mean, being a teacher on some level is public service, and now it's elected public service. So what first inspired you to be a teacher and then to run for office later?
Well, so I grew up in a home. My dad was a state representative from the time I was in second grade until I graduated college. And so we had very different dinner table conversations than other families. And so I decided that once I realized that most of my friends or people my age didn't really know a lot about government, that I was going to teach it. And so my goal was to teach government and to teach high school students how government works, but maybe more importantly, what to do when it doesn't work for you, right?
Mhm.
And in doing that, I became a little bit of an accidental advocate. Because I wanted to advocate for my students. I've only taught and worked in low income rural schools, and
Mhm.
so I wanted to go to bat for them, and I did. And it kind of got the attention of this guy named Andy Beshear, who I knew Andy before, and we were
Right.
friends. But my favorite part of the story is that he called me to meet with him and to ask me to run with him because in Kentucky we run as a ticket.
Mhm.
And so um, I couldn't meet him at certain times, and I said, "Listen, I have bus duty. Like I can't leave. I'm the assistant principal. I can't leave until the last bus leaves the parking lot." And so I left bus duty once they all left to meet with Andy. And when he asked me if I would consider it, I was shocked. And he said, "Is that not what you thought we were going to talk about?" And I said, "Andy, I just left bus duty. No, that I did not think you were going to ask me to run for lieutenant governor with you." So that's how that all started.
That's very interesting. I mean, did you learn things from your students when you look back now that you apply in your life as an adult and as a lieutenant governor?
Absolutely. I will say this too. Most people think that this is, being a lieutenant governor is a huge leap from being an educator. But what I always tell people is, look, every challenge that we face in Kentucky, I see the solution as education. And we don't face any challenges here that I couldn't tell you the name of the family who also face those challenges. So it's just a little bit obviously of a bigger scope, but the challenges are the same.
And I know that you're from a big basketball family, that your grandfather, Jack Coleman Sr., was the Hall of Fame NBA, a two-time NBA champion, and you were a basketball coach. Does basketball still play a role in your life? Are there any things from coaching that apply now as lieutenant governor, or the way you deal with your team, or even with Governor Beshear from your a coach?
Absolutely. I of all the things that I've done in my life, I think being an athlete and being a coach probably did more to prepare me for this role than anything, because you obviously have to learn how to, move a team in the right direction. You have to anticipate what your opponents are going to do and be prepared to respond.
Mhm.
You got to have some thick skin too. So
Sure.
that helped as well. But having basketball in my family, we all played. My grandfather was a two-time NBA champion. I met my husband because I was the girls' basketball coach and he was the boys' basketball coach.
Ah.
And then actually ended up adopting one of my players. And so I coached her and Chris coached our boys. And so we're all a big basketball family.
Is there a lot of, I think there is, but I'm not 100% sure, a lot of rivalry between University of Kentucky and Louisville, like in,
Just a
yeah,
little bit, just
that's
a
really
little bit.
big. Yeah.
Gets a little tense around here the week of that game.
No, I met, no, my niece and my niece goes to Duke now, and my sister went to Duke, and like UNC and NC State, the same type of thing, all in the same state there, and the competition gets pretty fierce, especially around basketball. Those are all
That's right. That's
basketball
right.
programs.
Basketball is the big thing here in Kentucky. Yeah.
So no doubt, I'm chatting with Kentucky Lieutenant Governor Jacqueline Coleman. So I know that you're a passionate advocate for education issues, being an educator. How has the impact been, if any, of the cuts by Department of Education on the federal level? Have you seen that manifest already in your state, or is it coming more in this year?
There's already a lot of angst about it, and schools are already trying to figure out, and even the Kentucky Department of Education is trying to figure out how they're going to make these things work. The challenge is that the funding that comes from the federal government is so often used to support our most in need kids. Special education, low socioeconomic status, all of those things. And so to know that, they're essentially shuttering the Department of Education at the federal level in DC. First of all, that sends a terrible message to the country and to the world. But second of all, it puts all of our rural schools, our poorer communities, our special needs students, all at risk, depending on what happens next.
And I mean, are there concerns too with the coming cuts if they've not been impacted yet, like with SNAP and even Head Start, and we know the Medicaid, from my understanding, won't go into effect till a year from now, but ACA subsidies are gone. They might get reinstated. Have those federal cuts, have you seen any impact yet in Kentucky? And are people talking about this back down there?
Oh, yes. And to your point, that was exactly what I mentioned earlier. There's nothing that happens in government that doesn't impact the kids in the classroom. And
Yeah.
so now these kids are, their families may have lost their health care. They may have lost their SNAP benefits. So now you have kids who are going to be coming to school sick. You're going to have kids that are going to be coming to school hungry. If you're hungry, you can't learn. And there's going to be more discipline problems. There's going to be more challenges in the classroom with kids that can't see a doctor when they're sick. So, every single thing that happens that affects our families affects every classroom in Kentucky and in the country as well.
So how do you, I mean, do you know yet how you'll navigate this? I mean, it's going to be, every state is going to be impacted and the challenges are going to be off the charts. And I imagine for rural areas, it's even greater with a smaller, tax base. I'm not exactly sure how you fund your programs, but here where we live in New York City, it's going to a lot from real estate tax. So how will you navigate this?
Well, we're trying to troubleshoot, not really knowing what's going to happen next, right? We there's been no, I mean that's the thing about where we are right now in history, and that there's not a lot of stability. There's not a lot of certainty, and so all we know is that the Department of Education is being shuttered. We don't really know what is going to happen next or how we're supposed to operate. And so we're basically trying to think of every scenario we can and figure out how we can prepare for it. That goes from everything from teacher preparation to funding for our classrooms. Down the line. And so, from the state level Department of Education to the local level of superintendents and principals and teachers in the classroom are trying to figure out what they can do to offset the damage that they know is coming.
I can only imagine the anxiety involved because I know all the teachers care and the pain.
Well, yeah, and they've got enough on their plate, right? They've got enough to worry about. And so to add, all of these other, impending cuts on top of it is it's a lot to ask of people.
Very much so. I saw recently the governor, Andy Bashir, delivered the 2026 State of the Commonwealth address. So how was the state of the Commonwealth of Kentucky?
So the governor did a great job delivering the State of the Commonwealth. It's his second to the last one, and it's also his last budget address. He kind of combines them, but the governor did a great job laying out our bold vision for a brighter Kentucky. We call here in Kentucky, we say we're Team Kentucky, and so everything from pretty historic investment in affordable housing to trying to do what we can to offset the Medicaid cuts that are coming. We cannot make up for what the federal government does, certainly, but we've got to start thinking that way. To pre-K for all and raises for our teachers. We've been able to secure raises for law enforcement, state employees, and social workers, and all of those are deserved and long overdue. The only group of public servants that has not received a raise from this General Assembly is educators. And so we work to change that every single year.
That's great. And that's very important. How, as an educator yourself, how significant would it be if you had pre-K provided by the state? Like how would it impact the children and also the families?
Oh my gosh, the return on investment to have a pre-K for all program is astronomical. Yes, it's hard to get it going when you don't have it. Yes, it's hard to get it set up, build a workforce, find the physical space, but you got to put one foot in front of the other and make it happen.
Right.
I was a high school teacher, and so I often say that I know what it feels like to triage at the 11th hour to try to help kids get to where they need to be. If every child had access to pre-K, we would have so many more kids that started kindergarten, what we call kindergarten ready.
Mhm.
And that changes the trajectory of a kid's life. I know most people think, oh, pre-K is, childcare or, it's, something that they just play. But it's been proven that there is a direct correlation between access to pre-K, reading scores, math scores, graduation rates, and prison populations. Think about that. So
Wow.
I like to say we can invest in our kids on the front end, or we are literally going to pay for it on the back end.
I learned more about it years ago. Virginia Governor Ralph Northam was there, and he was a Democrat, and he came on with a Republican who I think was a former governor from another state, and they were bipartisan, going around the country trying to get more support for it. Do Republicans? I mean, I know at the federal level, it's so bizarre. It's dysfunctional, yet Republicans control the House and the Senate and the White House. Like, it's not like a divided government. They should not be dysfunctional. They're horribly dysfunctional. So nothing except for tax cuts for the wealthy get passed up there, and bad things. In your state, are the Republicans willing to work with Governor Beshear and yourself on a thing like pre-K, which objectively is good for the children and good for the families?
Yeah, so we actually have in Kentucky, just to level set here, there is a super majority of Republicans in the House and the Senate. And then the governor and I are the only statewide elected Democrats. So it's a tough deal. But I will say this, there are a lot of Republican representatives who are educators or former educators, and they get it. The challenge is being able to build consensus, certainly with their leadership, who kind of holds the purse
Right.
strings with folks. But we have folks who are, we call it the rank and file of the caucus that wants to see this happen. It's a matter of whether or not their leaders are going to go for this. And quite frankly, I don't understand why they wouldn't, because not only is it good for our kids, it's good for our workforce. There's an estimate that 70,000 Kentuckians then could return to work if we had pre-K for all 4-year-olds. That's a lot of people to put back in the workforce to boost economies and families' budgets as well.
No, it's a pre-K is such an amazing investment. The data backs it up for the children, for the families, for long term for the children. You're really investing in our country, in your state, and your country by doing this.
You really are. And, I know we're talking about it as a policy, obviously, but I'm the mom of a 5-year-old. And she went to preschool last year, and she's in kindergarten this year. And talk about this resonating, because when I took her to school on the first day for kindergarten, I looked around that room and I knew 66% of the kids in that classroom were not kindergarten ready. That's
Wow.
the stat. And I want that for every Kentucky kid. It shouldn't matter if you're a college town or you're the biggest city or the smallest place. You should be able to offer this to your kids so that everybody can have the start that they deserve.
Very much so. And by the way, when you say kindergarten ready, what does that mean objectively? I have an idea, but what is there
Yeah,
actual
there,
standards?
yeah. So there are a list of standards, and it's basically how you determine once your kid goes into kindergarten, they do a little assessment on them, social, emotional, academic, all of those things, and then with using that Brigance test, they score whether kids are ready for kindergarten or not, and that's where they start them, and that's what they spend the year working on. And so our kids are starting behind the 8 ball from the very beginning, and most kids never catch up. Think about how unfair that is.
Very much so.
Yeah.
I'm chatting with the Kentucky Lieutenant Governor Jacqueline Coleman. So you are now chair of the National Lieutenant Governor Association. So what do you do with that?
So I will become the chair in July.
Oh, in
Um,
July. Oh, that's you got elected.
yes,
So
yes.
what are you going to do?
Yeah, so as the National Lieutenant Governors Association, I always say it's kind of the best kept secret because it's all of the lieutenant governors in the country, Democrat and Republican, that want to be involved are involved. And we come together and convene a few times a year, and we actually don't talk about anything that is partisan. We stay focused on issues that will help everyone, regardless of what your party is. So, I mean, there's a way to politicize any issue. I get
Sure.
that. But we don't do that. From education to workforce to energy and environment, public safety, AI and technology, any emerging issue that we are all dealing with, we bring in experts and we have panels. We also share with each other projects that we're working on, programs that we've started. And I've learned a lot from my fellow lieutenant governors and been able to share with them some things that I've been able to get done. All of our roles are so different.
Mhm.
Some run as a ticket, some don't, some preside over the Senate, some don't. And so we're all very different. We come at it from a different angle, but we're all really, we should be working towards the same thing. And so I love learning from them. And I've taken a lot of things that they've brought to our meetings and worked to implement it here in Kentucky. And we've had a lot of success because of that. So I look forward to leading that organization and, bringing people together, pushing out the politics and figuring out how to get things done.
That's great. And a friend of mine just got elected in Virginia, Gisela Hashmi, is
Oh,
lieutenant
yeah.
governor. So, and we've had her on when she was state senator, and we had her on during the campaign. We had her on since she's been elected. She'll get sworn in. I think the swearing in, I may have missed it. It may have happened. I think it's coming up any day. The same thing in New Jersey. There, they run as a team. There
Yeah.
in Virginia, they run independent of each other. It could go either way, but they're
Right.
loosely a team of Democrats. So it's an exciting time. So, over the weekend, I saw that in Kentucky, there were even some protests opposing some of the actions of ICE, and certainly of the memory of Renee Good, who was killed by an ICE agent in Minneapolis. What is going on? Can you share what's going on in terms of ICE in Kentucky?
But let me just say this. I have the national news on from time to time, and I've been having, if my daughter's in the room with me, I have to pause it or turn it off.
Right.
Not only because of the footage and what's going on, but the way people are talking about it, the language that they're using. I just go back to the least we could do is behave at the level that we expect for 6-year-olds. I mean, like, I don't understand why that's so hard, but um, with everything that's going on with ICE right now across the country, I know there's a lot of again, uncertainty, instability. People are scared. Um, in terms of talking about this from a larger perspective, I don't think it's the what, I think it's the how,
Mhm.
right? What we were told originally was this group was going to be, they were going to up the resources and bring more people on, and they were going to go looking for violent criminals and deport them.
Yeah.
That's what they were supposed to be doing. That is not how they're doing it. They are terrorizing schools. They are pulling teachers out of the school. They're pulling kids. They're ripping families apart. I mean, it's gut wrenching for me to think about. I cannot even imagine a kid going to school and not knowing if their parent is going to be there when they get home. And by the way, that happened in my husband's school. My husband's an assistant
Oh,
principal. They have a student at their high school who came to school that morning, got home and found out his dad had been detained and by ICE agents and didn't know where he was. And that was his only parent.
right.
I mean, this is real and it's affecting real people and it's happening everywhere. And again, this is not how um, this should be going. This is not how people should be treated. And that is a failure of leadership, plain and simple.
Yeah, I mean, the latest data shows about two-thirds of those detained and I think deported by ICE don't have any criminal convictions whatsoever. So if you were going to do what Trump said in the campaign, you'd go after the violent criminals first, and then maybe have a discussion about the others and have some kind of legislation to deal with the pathway to citizenship and protecting others. But nope, none of that. There's no nuance.
That makes too much sense, Dean.
It does. That's the problem. So last thing, I know that next year the governor's race is up in your state, and that there's talk that you may or may not run. Are you thinking about it still? Are you still considering the potential of running for governor?
I'm giving it some serious thought. We've had one female governor in Kentucky, and that was in the early 80s,
Mhm.
and she was also a teacher. Uh,
Ah,
and so the only teacher and the only woman that's ever been elected in Kentucky was elected in the early 80s, which most people don't know that. But I'm giving it some serious consideration. I've loved this job. I'm telling you, we've been doing this since 2020, and so 6 years in,
right.
and there's not a day that goes by, no matter what we've been through, that I don't feel incredibly lucky to be in this role. And so I've learned so much. I've seen so many good things happen, and we've also helped in a lot of tough situations in Kentucky. And so I'm having a lot of conversations with people across the state, asking them what they think we need. What are they looking for in a leader? And I'm listening right now. So the time will come to talk about 2027 and the governor's race. And I just will say that I'm giving it some serious consideration.
It makes sense. And if you do decide to run, I hope you'll come back on and talk about your priorities of your campaign and why you're running for governor. Time goes fast, but it was great meeting you. And thanks for spending some time and going through some of the issues in your state. And I think they resonate in other parts of the country, and sometimes they're unique. So I really appreciate it, Lieutenant Governor, and I wish you the best. Happy New Year. I look forward to chat with you in the future.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate you covering Kentucky. The governor's the head of the Democratic Governors Association, and I'm going to be the head of the National Lieutenant Governors Association. So little old Kentucky's punching above our weight.
You guys are running the country. This is how it goes. All right. Take care, Lieutenant Governor. Have a great
Thanks,
day.
Dean.